There's something different about people who attended one-room schoolhouses. In a world where education is divided by precise age groups and specialized subjects, these individuals experienced the most integrated and community-centered form of learning in modern history, and it shaped their psychology in ways that created the most adaptable and socially intelligent generation of learners ever to exist. Let's start with something that seems almost impossible today. Picture yourself at 7 years old in September of 1934. You walk into your school building, and it's a single room containing children from ages 6 to 16, all learning different subjects at different levels, all taught by one teacher who knows every family in your community personally. Your education isn't just about learning, reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's about learning how to function in a mixed-age community where older children help younger ones, where advanced learners assist struggling classmates, and where everyone's academic progress affects everyone else's learning environment. But this wasn't just about making do with limited resources. This was your introduction to the concept that learning could be collaborative rather than competitive, that education served community development rather than just individual advancement, and that the best classroom environments functioned like extended families where everyone had both responsibilities and support systems. Think about what happened to your developing brain during those one-room schoolhouse years. Every day brought exposure to academic material at multiple levels simultaneously. While you worked on first-grade arithmetic, you could overhear the sixth graders discussing fractions and the eighth graders reading poetry aloud. You were receiving accelerated exposure to advanced concepts years before you'd formally study them. This created what educational psychologists call peripheral learning acceleration. Psychology. Unlike children who only encounter grade-level material through direct instruction, you absorbed advanced concepts through ambient exposure, developing familiarity with complex ideas long before you were expected to master them. Your brain learned to filter and organize information from multiple simultaneous sources, to pay attention to your own level of instruction while remaining aware of more advanced learning happening around you, and to recognize patterns and connections between different academic subjects and grade levels. This developed what cognitive psychologists call multi-level information processing. Psychology. You learned to function effectively in environments with multiple streams of information, to extract relevant learning from complex social and academic situations, and to understand that knowledge existed in interconnected layers rather than isolated subjects. But here's what made one-room schoolhouse education psychologically profound beyond just academic instruction. The older students weren't just classmates, they were tutors, mentors, and role models whose daily behavior demonstrated what successful learning looked like and what academic progress required. When you struggled with reading, a fourth grader might spend time helping you sound out difficult words. When you mastered addition, you might be asked to help a kindergartner understand counting. You learned that education was a collaborative effort where everyone taught and everyone learned, regardless of their official grade level. You learned that knowledge was something to be shared rather than hoarded, that helping others learn reinforced your own understanding, and that the strongest academic communities were those where advanced learners supported struggling students rather than competing against them. This created what social learning psychologists call collaborative knowledge construction. Psychology. You learned that understanding deepened through teaching others, that learning was enhanced through peer interaction, and that the best educational experiences happened when students at different levels worked together toward shared academic goals. Now imagine the relationship you developed with your teacher, who wasn't just an instructor, but a community leader, family advisor, and the person responsible for educating an entire generation of local children. She knew your parents personally, understood your family's economic circumstances, and tailored your education to serve both your individual learning needs and your likely future role in the community. Your teacher represented authority, knowledge, and community wisdom, all combined into one relationship. She settled playground disputes, provided guidance on family problems, and served as the bridge between childhood and adult responsibilities in ways that shaped your understanding of leadership, expertise, and social authority. You learned that the best authority figures earned respect through competence and care rather than just position. That leadership meant serving community needs rather than just exercising control. And that knowledge carried responsibility for helping others develop their own capabilities. This developed what authority relationship psychologists call competence-based respect psychology. You learned to recognize and appreciate genuine expertise, to understand that authority served community benefit when exercised thoughtfully, and to respect leaders who demonstrated both knowledge and care for those they guided. The one-room schoolhouse also taught you about the relationship between individual achievement and community success in ways that shaped your lifelong approach to personal accomplishment and social responsibility. Your academic progress wasn't just about your personal advancement, it affected the entire classroom environment and learning opportunities for everyone else. When you excelled in a subject, you became a resource for classmates who needed help. When you struggled with concepts, you received support from peers who had already mastered those skills. Your individual learning was embedded in a social context where personal success and community welfare were inseparably connected. This created what community psychology experts call collective achievement consciousness. You learned that individual excellence served community benefit when combined with willingness to help others succeed, that personal learning was enhanced through social cooperation, and that the strongest communities were those where individual talents contributed to collective development. But perhaps most importantly, the one-room schoolhouse taught you about adaptability, resourcefulness, and the relationship between limited resources and creative problem-solving. Your school had one teacher, limited books, basic supplies, and students at dramatically different academic levels, all sharing the same physical space and learning schedule. Your education required making the most of available resources, finding creative ways to practice skills with limited materials, and learning to study independently while others received direct instruction. You developed self-directed learning abilities out of necessity and learned to value education highly because you understood how much effort it took to provide quality instruction under challenging circumstances. You learned that the best education often happened when resources were limited, but commitment was strong, that individual initiative could overcome material limitations, and that learning was ultimately a personal responsibility that could be supported but not replaced by external instruction. This developed what educational resilience psychologists call resource-independent learning psychology. You learned to extract maximum educational value from minimal resources, to take responsibility for your own academic development, and to understand that genuine learning depended more on personal effort than on material advantages. The one-room schoolhouse experience also taught you about seasons, community rhythms, and the relationship between education and agricultural life. School schedules accommodated planting and harvest seasons when older children were needed for farm work. Your education was integrated with community economic cycles rather than isolated from them. You learned that education served practical life preparation rather than just abstract knowledge acquisition, that learning should enhance your ability to contribute to community economic life, and that academic achievement was valuable when it improved your capacity to serve family and community needs. This created what practical education psychologists call life-integrated learning psychology. You learned that the best education prepared you for actual responsibilities you would face as an adult, that knowledge was most valuable when it enhanced your ability to contribute to community well-being, and that learning should serve practical problem-solving rather than just intellectual development. The social dynamics of mixed-age education also provided daily lessons in leadership, mentorship, and the relationship between age, responsibility, and social authority. As you progressed through grade levels, you gradually took on more responsibility for helping younger children, maintaining classroom order, and supporting your teachers' efforts to manage a complex learning environment. You learned that leadership was earned through demonstrated competence and reliability rather than just assigned through authority, that the best leaders were those who used their advantages to help others develop their own capabilities, and that community strength came from everyone accepting appropriate responsibilities rather than just pursuing personal benefits. This developed what developmental leadership psychology experts call earned authority psychology. He learned that social authority should be based on contribution to community welfare, that leadership meant serving others rather than just directing them, and that the most respected community members were those who used their abilities to enhance collective well-being. Years passed, one-room schoolhouses were consolidated into larger schools with age-graded classrooms, specialized teachers, and more resources per student. Educational efficiency improved, but something essential was lost in the transition from community-centered to institutionally centered learning. Something from those mixed-age classroom years stayed with you forever, an understanding that learning was inherently social, that education served community development, and that the best academic environments combined individual achievement with collective responsibility. Decades later, when educational discussions focus on individual student achievement, standardized testing, and competitive academic performance, you carry knowledge about what collaborative learning looked like when it was embedded in community, relationships, and practical life preparation. Now imagine trying to explain to your grandchildren what it was like when one teacher educated an entire community as children in a single room, when older students routinely helped younger ones learn, when education was integrated with family life and community economic cycles. This isn't nostalgia for simpler educational times. This is recognition of a fundamentally different approach to learning that prioritized community development, collaborative knowledge construction, and the integration of academic achievement with social responsibility. When modern education becomes increasingly specialized and competitive, you understand what's lost when learning stops being a collaborative community effort and becomes an individual pursuit of personal advantage. Your one-room schoolhouse childhood taught you that knowledge serves community, that learning is enhanced through teaching others, and that the best educational experiences happen when individual development contributes to collective well-being rather than competing against it. Those years of mixed-stage learning, collaborative problem-solving, and community-centered education weren't just academic instruction. They were apprenticeships in social cooperation, leadership development, and the integration of personal achievement with community responsibility that shaped the most adaptable and socially conscious learners in educational history. Drop a comment and share your one-room schoolhouse memory. Do you remember the mixed-stage learning environment? How did older students help you learn? What did you learn about responsibility and community from that educational experience? And if this resonated with you, hit like and subscribe, because we dive deep into the psychology that explains how your unique educational experiences shaped the remarkable adaptability and social consciousness you carry today. See you next time.